welcome to the video. It's SOFI Wednesday. Big picture if you don't want to stick around for the whole video. I'm still super bullish on this one. I think 2025 is going to be banger for it. In this video, we'll talk about the daily and weekly price action so we can get a feel for when price can move, where price can move in the short term, long term. This will help us identify where we're going to add, where we're going to trim in line with our risk tolerances, and it's going to keep us a level head whilst the market's choppy. We'll also talk about the open options interest. This will give us a feel for what the big boys are doing with the stock and the market makers. Other than that, we'll touch on some news, and finally, my eToro portfolio is going to be linked in the description down below. Right, we're talking about SOFI today. Oh my god, this has done so good. It's been a kind of a dud for a while. Well, I wouldn't say a dud, but a lot of people have been telling me it's an awful pick and it's never going to have the multiples I'm expecting. It does look like fortunes are changing. Wall Street's starting to respect it a little bit more. But let's just look at the chart and where price is going from the technicals, shall we? So obviously we had this killer move here from the low to the tippy top. In 62 trading days, we did 139.98%. So let's just round that to 140%. So that is killer. My portfolio has been loving it. People that have followed me into this trade have been loving it. And it's not been crazy volatile lately. We've had a couple of oversold, a couple of overbought. But really, the volume's just been growing fairly steadily. It is probably going to be sticking at this area. We have a little volume shelf here. So a lot of the people that have been holding this for a while probably going to come out this one. So we're having a bit of indecision on that level. So I wouldn't hate a pullback too much. Maybe just close this gap or get down to this volume shelf and Fibonacci. Worst case scenario on a pullback, I think it's going to be kind of 1671, in which case I would buy more. The price, we'll look at in the news section. I've put my DCF model on there that I was working with over the last quarter, which I've still been using. But really, essentially, price is kind of hovering around close to fair value of this one. So I feel like I'm running out of time to add to this. However, with earnings coming up at the end of the month, actually, that model is going to have to get rebuilt because I think some of the loan platforms, good stuff's going to be on there. So I think we're going to be raising that fair value, and that's going to allow me to add a higher. But regardless of that, I'm not going to add when a stock has gone pretty much in a, up and to the right without pausing really. I need a good pullback to add on confidently. I have been trimming a little bit. My position is still pretty large. I think it's third or fourth at the minute. It changes day to day because all of my top positions are kind of similar. It depends on the market moves for the day. So still live this one. This again is a company, a very, very long-term hold for me, which I don't often do, but this one I'm super bullish going through to 2026, 2027, along with Tesla. I think other than that, there's probably some rotational stocks in my portfolio for real estate. I think that's going to be decent when markets come down. And I mean, the energy stuff, we'll see how it goes. But this is absolutely going to be a cornerstone of my portfolio for quite some time. I love it. As we can see on the indicators, RSI is getting a little bit spicy. If we scroll back historically, we can stay spicy for a little while. But I would definitely expect some cool off just to get it down a little bit like it has done prior before we had another push. But these pullbacks on this run were also quite small. So if we can get back under kind of 70 on the RSI, I think that could trigger the next move up, potentially into earnings or post earnings. We'll see how that goes. Institutions loving this one, and flow looks good as well. Let's check out the weekly though. Gonna have to try and talk fast because it's hot as hell in this room and I need to turn my fan on. So, I mean, that move looks even more violent when we look at it on the weekly chart, doesn't it? Looks glorious. So I did put on here over 20 by year end. That looks like that could come to fruition, and over 45 in 2026, which would be next year. So that would be extremely good for my portfolio if that happened. But it's not going to be up in a straight line, so always bear that in mind. Haven't heard anything else about another offering, so kind of some of the notes there are a little bit redundant. Entirely possible though. I did put a large trim if it hits that line in 2025. I mean, if we have another week solid up to that, that's absolutely going to be a large trim because that is a volcanic move for a financial instrument company, whatever you want to call it. That would be a 60% move in like 4 weeks, which would be insane. What else on the chart? We have the cup and handle. I guess we could kind of call this another big ass cup and handle because we like those, but the measured move for that, I just put it on there. This chart has been quite busy. You need to take some of the older stuff off there, but I still like to see it, so I'm very fond of it. Big ass cup and handle. 28. So this stock ticker loves filling its patterns. And it's gap fill, so like I say, I would expect the gap fill on the daily to fill at some point. Something to bear in mind if you wanted to get in on this one. RSI in the weekly, a little bit hot, but we can get spicier. We had this absolute banger move here previously. Institutions looks good and flow looks good, so the technicals look good on this one. If a little bit extended, we could have a little bit of a pause, but momentum certainly coming into this one, narratives coming into this one. Institutions are starting to get on board with this one. Very exciting. Options market for SOFI, that is, I don't think I've seen a range that tight for market makers for a while, so they want to keep it perfectly in that range, which I'm probably going to say is not going to happen. So they want to keep it in that range because when price moves out that range, that means they've got to pay out people that have strikes outside of that range a premium, so it costs them money in payouts, that in very simple terms. So they did a really good job of doing that on this breakout here. We are currently over it. We'll have to see if they manage to pull it back down, but it looks like they're struggling to do so. I'm a little bit more bullish on this now I've seen this options market, especially if let me just move these out of the way. We've got a lot of people sitting in the money on this one, so they're going to be thrilled. Got a little bit of volume at 21, so maybe a push up there, but then a little bit down to 16. So I think they might prefer it in the short term to go higher. We'll have to wait and see. Putting it out to the week after, we've got a lot more bearish looking people, which is interesting. I haven't checked what's happening on the economic calendar next week, but maybe that's something is coming. That's what's happening. A lot of people are sitting at 20 still. Let's go out towards year end after we're expected to have had 2 rate cuts, which will be super bullish for fintechs and banks and all that stuff. January 2026. So we make this a little bit more readable. So not people super bullish in the options market on here. 25, again, that does line up with what we were looking at on the chart. Nothing higher. So a lot of people kind of happy to sit in the money on this one, which is nice to see. Some people have been holding it for quite a while. But again, still some bearishness here. I'd like to see that fade away. Let me just push it out to 2027. Just to be nosy. Kind of bullish and bearish. So looking a bit mixed bag on the longer term. So I guess the options market and the big boys haven't changed their mind too much on this when they're doing derivatives. But actually, let me just, is this going to show you my screen? Fintel, SOFI. Let's have a quick look together at what the institutions are doing on this one. Okay. So institutions are dipping a little bit, maybe taking off some risk off the table. So I'd like to see that pick up again. So not as great in that aspect, but it's had a hell of a run. Can't hate that. Since kind of December. If we switch back to the chart, go on the daily. That's where you can figure it year to date. So December, from the December, those institutions are up 231%. And a good thing to remember about Wall Street is they typically don't come until you're having a bit of momentum. So these guys were ahead of the crowd here. So my DCF model that I was working with for this is currently up there. Probability price target of 22.34, which is kind of a weighted base case price target. So nothing too crazy as it's kind of a bank, a fintech type thing. I don't want to be too bullish on there. I'm not expecting the multiples to get super stretched. However, price is currently sitting at 2022 today, so a little move up, we're going to be pretty much at that. And I don't really like adding two stocks when it gets over my fair value for the current earnings, if that makes sense. So the current numbers from last quarter are what were built into this model. And maybe that price gets lifted on the next one, but until that, I'm not adding more if it gets over 22.35. That said, I'm not adding more at these levels unless we have a pullback. If we do have a pullback to the levels I've talked about, totally happy to add. Other than that, what have we got here? SOFI Insider. He does a lot of really deep digging and he's really good at reading the code on the website as well. So he has some really good insights. He looks at the job offerings as well, so we can see what they're hiring for, where they're pivoting their business. And there's been a lot of crypto stuff lately. But he did put on there, I'm assuming it's a he, SOFI, 79% of people would take out a loan again, which is fantastic. Sorry, my dog's barking. Probably the postman's coming. And then over on this side, the chief product officer for Galileo as well has been out saying we're seeing a shift from human-centric AI augmented operations to AI augmented. So basically, there's going to be a lot of money saving there, a lot of opportunity. Underneath that, we've also got a little bit about the student loan changes. So this could be a really, really good benefit for private lenders. SOFI really is going to be forefront in that as well, I imagine, since students going to have to go back to the private markets. I don't know, it sucks for all students that have actually got to make payments again, but that's where we are. That's a wrap. I hope you like this. I've been trying to make the videos shorter, more concise, get the information out a little bit faster. Tell me if you like it, tell me if you don't, but share this regardless, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you tomorrow for tomorrow's update for PayPal.